Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us on Covenant Eyes Facebook Live. We're here with Jenny Rapson from Every Mom, for Every Mom, and we're excited to talk with her today. She has a huge following and just an amazing community for moms, and we're excited to hear from her a little bit more about how moms can have the conversation about how to protect their kids and how to keep their families safe from pornography in a world crazy filled with it. So I want to hear a little bit more from you. Can you tell me a little bit more about the organization for Every Mom?
Sure. Well, For Every Mom is a website that was started about 3 years ago, and our mission is really to equip moms and encourage them as they're doing their very best to raise their kids. And so you'll find practical tips at For Every Mom, trending issues that parents should be concerned with, and also articles to encourage you if you're raising your kids in the Christian faith.
That's awesome. I'm so grateful for that resource, and definitely something I'll be joining as far as the Facebook community as well. So there's an article on your website that you wrote a little while back that was titled "To the Mom Down the Street with the Porn Problem." And I'm interested to hear a little bit more about what compelled you to write that article and what's the story behind that.
Sure. Well, when I wrote the article, I had been doing a lot of research about the topic of pornography and how it affects our kids lifelong. And I realized through all the digging I was doing that we as parents really have a problem on our hands because porn is so easily accessible to our kids and it's so easy for them to find by accident. But even that first accidental exposure can lead to them, wanting more.
Yeah.
So I wrote the article to really try and send a call out to my fellow moms that this is a parenting problem for every parent. No one is exempt from it, and we all need to kind of join together and start a discussion about what we can do in our communities to keep our kids away from porn. So that's me working with the moms of my kids' friends, talking about what they're doing when they're with each other, and really having an open conversation about what we're allowing and not allowing as far as internet use and devices in our home, but also how we want our kids to use them in other people's homes as well.
Absolutely. Such an important network for us to acknowledge how our kids interact with other kids and other families, and just knowing what it is that they're doing and how they're approaching this issue, I think is hugely important. So on that topic, I have found that my mom friends are just not really talking about this. It's not something that comes up in conversation, and working at Covenant Eyes, you would think I would be totally equipped to just charge in and just say, okay guys, here's what we're going to talk about and here's what we're going to address. What tips do you have for us to be able to start that conversation and be able to start the process of really understanding how our friends are approaching this issue and how they're approaching it with their children?
Well, I think if you have a personal experience that you can make relatable as you're approaching someone, that's great. I'm hoping that most of us don't have a personal experience where our kids have seen porn, but something that happened with my son helps me to start this conversation, and I'll just give the example. So I know a lot of people don't allow sleepovers. We do allow our kids to do sleepovers with a select couple of families. And so my son was at a sleepover at a house with a family that I trust my child's life in their hands. But there were some other kids there. It was for a birthday party. Mm-hmm. And one of the kids had an iPhone. My son doesn't have a phone. He was 12 at the time. Mm-hmm. And he FaceTimed a girl in their class. Nothing happened. It was completely innocent. But my son came home and told me about it, and my jaw about hit the floor. Mm-hmm. Because I'm completely sure that the parents who were hosting the party didn't know that any girls were being FaceTimed.
Sure.
We're all lucky that it was innocent and nothing happened, but who knows what could have happened on that FaceTime, or who knows what else he could have shown them on that phone. Mm-hmm. So that spurred me to have a conversation with a lot of my mom friends and my kids' friends' moms about what they're allowed to do in someone else's home, mm-hmm. with a device, with the internet. Our personal preferences, and if they can't say, sure, we'll enforce that, then my kid's not going to go. So if you have a personal experience, that's a great lead in. If you don't, then reference an article that really has some great stats that to back you up on your position. And just, go into it with not guns blazing, but hey, I want what's best for my kid and I want what's best for your kid. This is what we're going to do at our house. How do you feel about it? Mm-hmm. And then can we talk about what we're going to do when my child is at your house?
Sounds like a great approach, using a personal story or an article and then really leading by example and then setting that example as a way for other families to approach it. Thank you. I feel like I'm equipped to actually have those conversations that I've been unsure of to this point.
You don't want to go in and be accusatory or anything, but I think what you'll find is that your friends will end up appreciating that you had the gumption to go ahead and start the conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's so encouraging and so helpful. I really appreciate that.
Sure.
So you're obviously passionate about parenting and mom life in general, and not only as it relates to pornography, but also about things like social media use and how our kids are interacting online with devices. Tell me a little bit more about how that experience you think is really crafting our children for the future and why that's so important to you.
Sure. Well, I am a big proponent of not letting your kids have social media until they're a little bit older. My 13-year-old doesn't have a phone yet. When he does get a phone, it's just going to be like a flip phone with no camera. Mm-hmm. And he won't have social media for another couple years yet. There are a few reasons. One reason is that social media gives kids a tool, another way to be very impulsive. I mean, kids naturally struggle with impulse control. It's not a fault of theirs. It's just a stage in their development. They're not going to really get to that super great self-control level until they're probably in their early 20s. So we give them these devices that can broadcast their behavior that may not be great or wise on a pretty big level to Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, whatever they're allowed to have. So that's one reason, is it does make them vulnerable just by broadcasting some of their bad choices. They can get in trouble at school for things that they post, etc. And a teacher employer can see things. Or I was telling my son just the other day about the incoming freshmen at Harvard in the fall who got their acceptances rescinded for things they had posted on Facebook. So my 13-year-old and I had that conversation the other day, how that can really affect really big things in your life. So that's one thing. The second thing is that social media really turns your focus inward onto yourself. And I, as a woman, as a mom, I struggle with comparison. And I think just comparing myself to other moms, and I love social media and use it a lot. Obviously, I work on social media, so I'm thankful for it. But it does make it a lot easier to be hard on yourself. When you see yourself not measuring up to the very lovely filtered pictures of their lives that everyone else is putting out. So as a teen, I mean, that's really hard. You're going through low self-esteem, all these changes, and you put a picture on Instagram and you don't get any likes, or you get some negative comments. That can be really tough, and it can really cause kids to focus just on themselves and on being liked so much more than is healthy. Mm-hmm. It just intensifies a struggle that most teenagers have. So that's another reason. And then the third is just safety. As far as being on social media exposes kids to, strangers, predators, people they really shouldn't be giving themselves access to. So I think those are my three main reasons that I think parents should really keep their kids off their social media until they're at least older teenagers.
That's great advice and great wisdom, and just a great story in the importance of those things. So when you think about what parents can start doing actively, what are a couple things that you would recommend that moms start doing as early as today, like as early as their kids get off the bus? And what are some first steps that they can start taking towards that safety and really reframing technology in their home if they haven't already?
Sure. Well, I think it's important to talk to your kids and make sure they know what porn is. At a much younger age than we would be comfortable with these days. So you can start with simple language, good pictures, bad pictures, but make sure they're comfortable talking to you, and that they know that anything that comes up, they can come to you and say, Mom, this came up on my tablet or YouTube, or I wasn't looking for it, but I saw this and I don't know what to do. And that they know they're not going to get in trouble. But that telling you is the safe thing to do so that it won't happen again. So we need to start the conversation early. Don't get angry, don't get sweaty. Just let them know that you want to protect them and that you need to know what they experience, whether it's on purpose or not, so that you can do that. And another thing is just to set some ground rules. So I mentioned my son doesn't have a phone. My 11-year-old and 13-year-old do share a Kindle. And so they're not allowed to use that and have it on Wi-Fi in a room with a closed door, for instance. They don't use our desktop computer that we have for them to do homework with a closed door. Just certain safeguards like that. And then, you can also look into devices that turn the internet off at a certain time, things like that. Filters, of course, Covenant Eyes is a great product. But just having a really open conversation with your kids at the start is really important. And that goes from devices, phones, Kindles, tablets, to even their YouTube usage. It's just so easy to see something inappropriate on YouTube, even on YouTube Kids, and you have to watch it carefully.
What a gift that open dialogue is, that your son, even in your story, was able to come to you and share that, and what a conversation that prompted. That's huge. So I wanted to thank you for joining us, Jenny. We're with Jenny Rapson with For Every Mom. You can join her on Facebook at For Every Mom or at foreverymom.com. And I know I have been greatly encouraged and just provided with great tips in order to really have this conversation in my own life. And if you found that today, I encourage you to join her and join her Facebook community to continue to receive that type of encouragement. As this mom life is challenging and wonderful, I encourage you to join that as well. So thank you, Jenny, for joining us. That is Facebook Live for today. Thanks.